best part about SMS is you don't have to be a pro. In fact, you already are. Like most of us have been texting for 20, 30 years. And so the best messages are the easiest ones.
Hey everyone, welcome to Time to Thrive. Today's guest is Chris Brisson, founder and CEO of Sales Message, a two-way text messaging platform that helps businesses connect with leads and customers in real time. Known for blending automation with a personal touch, Chris has made it easier for companies to integrate SMS into their workflows. From solopreneurs to enterprise teams, Chris is changing how we think about business communication. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Awesome, Bethany. Nice to be here. Appreciate you having me.
I appreciate you being here. Okay, so like all our guests, we're going to ask you to pick a number between 1 and 5 for our super random question.
I'm sure the number that's probably most picked is probably three. So
It is.
I'm going to go for
It's
five.
pretty common.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did your childhood shape you into who you are today?
Of course, right? Didn't it
I
all
think that's
shape?
a good question for an entrepreneur, right? Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would say, my father was an entrepreneur, right? He owned pizza shops and restaurants and all sorts of stuff. And so, yeah, I just remember him like working and building a business. My grandfather was entrepreneur. My uncle was like in the concrete business, so more manual labor type stuff. So I always wanted to just create my own thing. And so I would say one of the most impactful things was like wrestling growing up. And so, yeah, I played a lot of sports. I played baseball. I played, um, yeah, a lot of baseball, and then did a lot of wrestling as well. And so, wrestling, I think, taught me a lot of like just good skills, around like I was the only one that was in the ring. I was the only one on the mat. And, whether I won or lost, it was my work ethic that enabled me to win. So I always look back on like wrestling as a very pivotal time. And I learned a lot, that still is with me today. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, you're the one responsible. There's no, as much as you have a team, and we've got a pretty big team with Sales Message, a lot of that, you have to own all the mistakes, the good, the bad, the ugly that come from sort of being a business owner, right?
yeah, I think there's a good analogy too there about the game isn't won on game day.
Yeah.
Or the match, the whatever, right? It's all the things that you do that nobody sees, the practice, the early morning, the working out, all those things. So, and there's an analogy there for business owners too, it's not always about the big glamorous win. It's the sometimes it's the grind and the hustle, right?
Yeah. 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 And, at the end of the day, it's your company. And so it's all going to fall on your shoulders. And so, um, we have a phenomenal team, but there's a lot of decisions that they're not going to be able to make. Or, at the end of the day, it's like it's not their company. And so it is the responsibility for me and for my co-founder to create something that's awesome. I always tell anybody that comes in the business, I'm like, look, my greatest gift to you is to build an amazing company. So on your LinkedIn, that logo and that icon and that company can forever pay you dividends. And so sure, you'll do well within the business, but I want to be able to support you from here on out. Because there's some people that will come through that'll interview. I'm like, man, you worked at that company? Oh my gosh, you worked at that company? And so what a great gift that I could give is just that, is an amazing company that will forever pay them dividends for whatever job or position they go for in the future.
Well, awesome. Well, let's just dive into what you do because we haven't had, I don't think we've had anybody on the show talk about SMS.
Yeah.
And I think, in marketing world, there's those things that um, there's so many options. And so, who is SMS best suited for? Where does it make the most sense?
Yeah. I think because it's so simple, it's often overlooked and where complexity sells. And so, you have to ask yourself, and I've been in messaging for a long time, there's not a lot of courses on how to use texting. And, but there's a lot of courses on how to write copy and, write email marketing campaigns and all the above. And so, SMS at its core is very simple. It's just a small little tiny little text message. And so, um, you know, there's really three main parts or communication methods in any business, right? You have calling, you have email, and then you have sort of this new one, which is SMS. So when somebody fills out a form, right, you're getting their name, their email, their phone number. And so that's really the way to communicate. Maybe you're getting their address for direct mail, but you're probably not going to Facebook them or WhatsApp them. You're going to call them, you're going to email them, and then you are going to now text them. And so those are the three channels. So we've got a framework. It's called Text-ize Your Business. And the idea with this is there is, sorry, my monitor sort of went black for a second there. But so Text-ize Your Business is a framework that any company can layer on messaging, right? Most people come in, they go, oh, I can use it to send a webinar reminder, right? And that's the only sort of use case they look at. But messaging plays a part in the entire business. So you can use it to generate leads, right? So hey, text to join, a QR code to send a text message, fill out a web form, and send a text message. Swipe up on like social media and reels and stories. Swipe up to send a text message or to engage with SMS. A web chat widget. That's a capture mechanism. So there's a lot of ways in which that you're capturing that information. If somebody calls you, you can do missed call automation. So, hey, they called you, missed called, you can outbound, an automated text message to engage right there. And then you've got, the sort of connection piece. So how are you going to have a two-way conversation? And now with AI, we built some really cool agent stuff. So you could feed it your brand voice, your knowledge base of like your website, your customer support center, whatever information. And now you have an AI agent that can have these real-time human-like conversations using AI and ChatGPT and all that stuff sort of built into sales message. That could book an appointment, could capture data. And then you've got the conversion side. So how to use it for SMS marketing or promotion. And then getting feedback, getting a review, turning them into a referral partner. And so the whole life cycle. So Text-ize is a way in which you can sort of layer on like, hey, here's all the ways that you can use messaging. And they're really tiny little texts. And so for most businesses, like, oh my gosh, there's all these ways that I can use it, but how do I make it simple? And so the best part about SMS is you don't have to be a pro. In fact, you already are. Like most of us have been texting for 20, 30 years. And so the best messages are the easiest ones, right? They're not long written out emails. They're not long sort of copywritten capitalizations and exclamation points. The best texts are very personal, normal, real text messages that get a response. So
And I think with emails too, like, this in the same vein, we have to be careful when we write emails that we're not pitching all the time. Otherwise, people tune it out or unsubscribe or whatever. So I imagine the same thing is true with SMS, that we, need to add some value or make sure that we're, not pestering people or whatever because we lose them. They unsubscribe from the service. Um, so, what are some, aside from what I just mentioned, what would be some other messaging mistakes that you would see entrepreneurs make?
yeah, I think thinking it's the same as email, right? So I see it all the time where they carry over this sort of more corporate approach to like, I must be corporate in texting because I need to, like, this is how you do it. And
Yeah,
while that can be true, the best way to get engagement is just to look as personal and as normal as possible, right? Because the channel of texting is personal, right? It
yeah.
wasn't meant as a business texting tool. It just so now has gotten more formalized to where businesses are using it to engage with customers. And so, it is sort of this clean pipe for engaging with me or you. Like if I sent you a text, you'll probably reply. If I sent you an email, maybe, right? And so the biggest mistake I think people make is they treat it like an existing channel. And so, that's certainly one. One of the big things today too is like before, anybody could get a phone number and start blasting texts, which was sort of the mode of operating with text messaging. That's how most people were sort of introduced to it, was like mass text messaging, right? But now, as texting has become more prominent, every business has to get approved, and so it's just a little form. We send it to the carriers. Those carriers approve it because they want to maintain the integrity of the channel, because marketers ruin everything, and so hey, we want to make sure that the businesses that are really sending text messages are legitimate businesses and using it for legitimate purposes, whether it's marketing or customer care or whatever. And so that's actually a good thing for the industry, because now that is a clean pipe. Now, when I look at my email, I mean, I get hit up all the time with like a million cold outbound services. My inbox is 80% now, just like some
Yeah.
service trying to sell me something. And so it's just gotten pretty crazy to manage that. So this, with texting, again, it just has become this straight pipeline that's clean and is getting more clean as the weeks and days and months go by. And so there's a cost to it, right? Getting approved. There's a fee that the carriers charge that we pass down. But that's a good thing for the businesses, because now they've got this sort of clean, open relationship they can have with a customer. I still get texts. I'm sure you get, spam texts and whatnot, but it's getting a lot more clean. And so it's not like email.
Yeah.
It's just defunct in many respects.
Well, and quote unquote spam that I get on text messages, I know where the list came from that sold my number. Like there's an affiliation there. I see where it came from. Last year my husband and I renovated our house, um, and we ordered our flooring for the house from an online company out of North Carolina, I think. And very early on, once I made the order, I almost immediately got a text message from this company saying, "Hey, this is Dan. Thanks for ordering. If you have any questions, I'll let you know when we ship it out. But if you have any questions in the meantime, just hit me up."
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure it was automated, but it felt very personal.
Yeah.
And throughout the whole process of the shipping and, I see that it's arrived. Was everything okay? Like the follow-up, the whole thing. At the end of it, I felt so taken care of in a way that wasn't intrusive and in a way that was convenient to me.
Hmm.
Um, so I couldn't stop talking about this company and how great their customer service was, and all it was texting.
Yeah.
Like, it really left me with a good feeling, and it felt super personal.
Yeah.
And Dan could have been 10 people for all I know, but
Right.
whoever Dan was in contact with me constantly. So,
Yeah.
um, I definitely feel it on that side. It can be used in such a powerful way. Um, and in that instance, I think too, like in the age of AI and all this tech tools and things that we're using to run our business, that felt personal. That was very human, even though it was using a tech tool, right? And I think we always have to be mindful of that, not to lose sight of our relationships with our customers, and text messaging is a fantastic way to really connect with people one-on-one,
Hmm.
um, and have an impact on their overall brand experience, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing, is like it is that experience, right? So from that personal touch to that engagement to the reminder. And so like one really cool exercise to go through is like, well, what is that journey? So for you buying that product, what's the experience that you want to create? Because there's a lot of uncertainty and anxiety around, when am I going to get it? Is it on time? Is it back ordered? Right? All those things along the way that, one, like, you want to know, and more importantly, how do you even get ahead of it, right? So how do you open it up to where there's this new communication channel that you feel heard, that you can just respond to when you need, and somebody else is on their own,
Anytime. Yeah.
right?
Well,
And
that
so
was the thing too. I ended up ordering more product because we decided to extend it out into the sunroom, and I needed some bullnose pieces for the stairs that went down there, and all I did was text it, "Hey, I need more products, and this is what I need, this is the measurements, how much will that be? Oh, here it is, here's a link to pay for it, we'll get it shipped right out. Zip, zip, zip. So much better for me than making a phone call, getting someone who's not familiar with my situation or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing we do that works out really well. So, when someone goes through the sales process, now anybody can sign up for sales message, right? But when they go through a sales process and then the sales team sort of hands it off to customer success, you have a relationship there. And so one of the things that we do is, when that handoff occurs, we send a text message and it's a picture of the sales or the support or customer success agent. So like Nick or Sarah on our team, it's an animated GIF, right? It's of them waving. And so, hey, let me introduce you to Nick. Hey, I'm Nick, over at customer success. I'm your new onboarding specialist, whatever it is. And so it just creates that experience of like, oh, I'm being handed off. Here's this person I'm going to meet. There's a picture of them. It's an animated GIF, and it just adds this sort of like experience along the way. Now, those things you have to think about, like, all right, well, how are we going to do that? How do we make that happen? All right, like, what's that process? And that's just through automation. So, like, we use HubSpot. So once it sort of moves through a different stage, cool, it can fire off a workflow. That workflow then, based on the owner. So if it's Nick, it will send, this text from Nick or this text from Sarah or whatnot. And so, those are the cool sort of experiences that at the end of the day, you want people going like, wow, I really like that company. That was really cool. Man, that's really neat. Oh, how do I do that for my business? And so, we being the messaging platform, we have to implement those strategies in our own business. And so other businesses can see like what is possible. Sometimes, we don't do all of them, but needless to say is like, we have to be a big proponent of using those tools. And so, experience is a big part of it. And like that's a really impactful way that I think business owners can do it, right? Is just opening up that channel.
Well, let me try and paint a picture, I guess, for the audience because our audience, small business owner, entrepreneurs, they're always looking for new ways to grow. Sales is a big part of that. If you had to double a business's sales in the next 90 days, what would the playbook look like for that using SMS?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I know
One,
it depends a lot on the company, but it just
yeah,
in general. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, look, I'm faced with that every quarter. So what are we gonna do? How are we gonna use it? So no, I think like one of the things is we all have past leads and customers. And so Dean Jackson had this whole idea about this 9-word email, if you ever heard this one. So, it's just an email that goes out and Dean sent it out to his past customers, which is, hey, are you still interested in XYZ? Hey, if you're still interested in XYZ, let me know, right? It was just a simple email. So that's an email that we've automated, right? So 30 days, if they didn't become a customer, hey, are you still interested? And so we just use the same thing for text. Everybody can do this, right? Everybody can break open their phone, send a text message to, their past leads, past customers. Hey, it's Chris at so and so. We talked a while back. Hey, are you still interested in texting for your business? Right? Oh, yes, no, blah blah blah. So there's a there are always people that have never converted, right? Or at one time they were interested. We can all send a text message to them to re-engage. And so like one of the philosophies that we have is conversations are good for business. And so the more conversations that you can create or have with new, existing, past customers, past leads, the more opportunities that you're going to unlock. Okay, well, what are the ways in which that we can create more conversations? Well, one is, hey, let's send the 9-word text message to open up. If people are still interested, we can engage with them and move from there. And in many cases, there's a good percentage of people that were like, you know what, I've been meaning to do that. Okay, great. Hey, let's book a demo or let's book a call or whatever it is. All right. So there's a sort of reactivation, if you will. And so, what are the other ways that you could reactivate past leads, past customers, right? Through SMS. That's a great one. The other one too is like if you're doing any sort of like lead form, right? If you have a web form today and you're not capturing a cell phone. So the idea of sort of speed to lead. So if you have any sort of sales process, right? Someone fills out a form, you call them on the phone, most likely they may not pick up, right? You're sending an email, they may not open it or reply to it. And so the other channel is, hey, let's automate an SMS to engage with them. So very quickly, you can look at your form. Are we doing SMS? No. Add a web form and then just set up an automation to engage with that lead real time. We actually built some like AI conversational agents. So it'll take over the conversation, because one of the big challenges that you have, if you have 15 conversations going on, how are you sort of managing all those conversations at once? AI can play a big part of that, right? So you can sort of automate that. And then, it's just sort of what are the flows within your current system. So are you doing meetings, right? Are you booking demos? Do you have appointments? So a reminder text, and we've been doing this for a long time, but on average, it's like a 15 to 20% increase in attendance, right? Everyone has a no-show problem. So using that as a channel, so if somebody books a demo, hey, send an automated text. Hey, it's Chris, just confirming. Hey, what is your biggest concern around your tile, right? Or something like that, where you can, once they book it, you can open up that conversation and sort of move closer to the next stage versus waiting for that demo or whatever it is in 2 or 3 days. So engaging and getting ahead of that really, really quickly. So if you're going to double it, like, messaging is sort of an optimization like tool in a sense, to where if you need to have a conversation, it's going to happen over SMS first, and then it can move to a call or move to whatever it is. But if you have leads, it's a great way to start. It's just an audit on your current setup and get to it.
Something that you said kind of resonated with me because, we offer under our Time to Thrive initiatives, which are really for emerging smaller businesses, we offer them a free 1 hour growth session, is what we call it. And it's really a strategy session to figure out where they are, where they want to go, and what they're going to have to do to get there. And just give them we lead with value. We just pour it out, give it out. Well, everybody's suspicious of it because they think I'm going to sell them something. I'm up to something, right?
Yeah.
And it is a way for us to connect and create that one-on-one relationship. But I find interesting, like, I think I need to start. I said to you at one point, we had sales message at one point for a different business. And I think I need to circle back to it from this conversation that we're having, because like when they go in and get the lead magnet, which is a free ChatGPT workshop for small business owners, right? Because it's a hot topic right now.
Mm-hmm.
They go in, they get the free workshop, and then it initiates a series of 6 emails. What I'm noticing is that the open rate is staying pretty much the same through all the way through, which typically you would see that decline over time, right? Like I've already seen that email before.
Yeah.
And it's what is just offering them the free growth session. I think, there could be some testing here that would be valuable to see how in addition to the emails, have an SMS reach out to say, hey, I just wanted to, this is Bethany, right? Make it personal. This is Bethany. I just want to make sure that you saw that we're offering a free growth session. And here's the link to schedule yours, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Definitely see the value in kind of tightening up the sales cycle
Yeah.
to make it a little shorter.
Yeah, and like those are it's just a tiny little text message, right? It doesn't have to be this monumental, like game-changing thing you have to think about forever. It's like, hey, you know what? Yeah, I wonder, let's send a text at this point in the process, introduce ourselves, and then invite them to book a call or something. Right. So, within that is maybe it's after they've proven, hey, 2 or 3 videos that they've unlocked, right, the opportunity for, a growth session worth, $197 or something like that. So, yeah, that's an interesting strategy.
Yeah. So I think most businesses could have an intentional process around SMS marketing, but and customer service, like figuring out the ways that it's most ideal for their business and serving their customers, creating the best brand experience. I, you are the CEO and founder of Sales Message, right? And
Yep.
the company is has been around for a little while. I know that because it was a number of years ago when we had it.
Hmm.
Um, I'd be curious if you don't mind sharing what kind of mindset shift did you have to make early on? Because when you do a startup like that, you got kind of go through some stages. And a lot of CEOs don't come out the other side. They actually end up leaving because they're great at startup, but not so much at running,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So what kind of mindset shift did you have to make as you progressed in the growth of your
Yeah.
company?
I think early on, right, it's just an idea and you've got to validate the idea and grow the idea and build the product and ideate on it. Like I'm a real product person. Like I love building product, even though I'm not building it, but I love the architecting of product and features and functionality and,
Yeah, the
what's the
innovation.
case and yeah, and the innovation side of it. So like I'm always pushing the needle on building product that I think is innovative. And so I think the first stage was certainly like the sales stage. Like, hey, is this a product that people want? So what actually happened 2015, so I wrote a 3-part blog series called The Death of Call Loop. And that was my other company called Call Loop, which actually still exists today. But it was 2015. The business wasn't really growing. It wasn't dying. It was broken. It was just, and it was really everything that went right was on me, and everything that went bad was me. And there was a lot more bad than there was good, right? And so I sort of got fed up, and I was like, man, I really want to create something better. I just feel so limited with like wanting to create and solve the problems. I couldn't. And so I wrote this 3-part series. Basically was, hey, I built a business I secretly despised. And then through the last sort of blog post was follow my journey as I reinvent Call Loop from the ground up. And so I went down this path and probably about 2 months into it, I'm like, hey, how long is it going to take to rebuild Call Loop? And um, my friend at the time was building it. He's like, oh, it's about a year and a half. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so far. I'm like, but I got another idea. And so started building this other product. It was a conference call product. And I spent about a year. We spent about a year building this product and realized like, wow, no one really wanted it. And actually, I didn't want to build it. And so, but about 6 months into that, I was like, if we really were to like redo it, let's just recreate the business and start from zero. And so, but before writing any code, I wanted to make sure we could sell it. And so I did a webinar. So we shut down this conference call platform. I was like, hey man, I got this other idea. And I pitched it to him. He's like, all right, let's get building. I'm like, no, don't do anything. Let me go ahead and sell it. So this was on a Monday and I did a webinar on Thursday. And so pre-selling Sales Message. And so I ended up pre-selling it, generated maybe 4,000, 3,000. I forget the actual number, but it was a couple $1,000. And that was the signal that was like, oh, this is actually something people want. I have a better vision for what this can look like. And we started down that path. And so that whole first year was really building the product. We had a team, maybe 3 of us, and it was all product. So I couldn't really develop, I couldn't really build. I did some marketing, but it was all on the backs of product development. So anyhow, so that was like that initial phase. Number one lesson learned: try and build something and sell it first before you start investing time and money and resource to like build something nobody wants. Made that mistake. But then
That's a Tony Robbins strategy, by the way. Tony
yeah.
Robbins does not put anything together until he has sold it.
Yeah, yeah.
He
Well,
has an idea
so
and he
they're
goes
a
out.
customer of ours, by the way. So I'm a
Oh,
huge
really?
fan. Yep. Mastermind.com with Dean Graziosi, if you know Dean. So yeah, I mean, that was certainly the first phase. And then the second phase was, I was so tied to every part of the business. It was difficult to give up parts of that. And so I'd say in the last probably 2 years, give or take, I've let other team members manage the parts of the business. And so, we've got 65 plus employees. And so that's different than 3 and 5 and 10. And I've always operated on smaller businesses. And so having, 60 plus people, it's a different ball game on how you're managing culture, right? What you can and cannot get into. And so, I like to get into the weeds of things. And so I'm really good on product, but then there's other parts where I'm like, I can't get into that. And so, there's parts of growing a business that I really enjoy, and there's parts that I don't really enjoy. But the parts that I do enjoy, I'm really good at, and I'll focus on that and being okay with giving up these other aspects of it. So, I've learned a lot through the process, but I've been, bootstrapped and small and trying to continue to grow. But I will say having a good co-founder really helped me through that process, and not trying to control everything and, be a part of every little whack-a-mole project within the company because you can't, you'll go nuts. And so it's okay. It's like, hey, good is better than perfect and not done.
Was there ever a decision that you made that felt super risky, but it turned out to be game changing for you for the business?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing was realizing the team that got us in the beginning was not the team that was going to get us to like the bigger vision that I had. And so that took a very, very long time to get through and get past. And it was very emotional because I was tied to the team and I really enjoyed the team. But I realized, okay, well, I can either do nothing and maintain this path, right? Or leave or change it. And so it took a while to get there, but what the decision I had to make was I had to let go of our entire development team. So we went from 4 folks to 3, and then that week the fourth one left. And so, but it was the best thing that I could have done because that was what needed to happen. And so when you go from a product company development, you go from a software company where you have nobody, and then now you got to start all over from scratch. But it was the right thing. I think people are in different phases of their life, and I certainly had a bigger vision for the product. And I think the folks that I had are on the team earlier got us there, and I'm very grateful for that. But they couldn't get us to that next level, and so we were constantly sort of hitting this ceiling of just the ceiling of what was possible, and that needed a new individual.
That's some super great insight because I think like what you mentioned about making that decision was very emotional. I think we're humans, right? And we don't want to hurt people or we don't like that um, contrarian um, thing, where we're doing something that doesn't feel good. But sometimes we have to do what's necessary, not necessarily what feels good in order to get our business to the next level. So that's a tough lesson to have to go through. Working with messaging and communications and things, you've probably seen all kinds of human behavior. Can you give us any insights onto the psychology of things that maybe people overlook when it comes to some of these tactics for how to message something or how to craft something?
Yeah. Oh boy, where can I go with this? I mean, there's a couple different areas I can talk about, like existing customers, right? Or just like how people are using. I think the biggest surprising thing is like the best companies are just actively using it, right? They're sending the right message at the right time to the right person. And so I came from like this very intricate, automated, Infusionsoft world where, everything was a crazy workflow, and then moved into like, how do we make it as simple as possible? Because simple is scalable.
Mhm.
And so, we have all types of different companies, from franchises to small businesses to uh, yogurt stores, right? It runs the gamut. And so the easiest thing is just, well, what's the simplest thing that you can do today to like unlock new leads? Hey, I could put um, a phone number on our form. I can have people text me, and that just becomes a simple strategy to open up an engagement. Oh, I'm doing webinars and I'm doing events. Okay, let me send an SMS reminder to get people to attend. I'm doing a podcast. All right, how am I going to build that list, right, outside of just an email or maybe a listener, right? So you want to capture that audience and and put them into some sort of campaign, right? And so a keyword could work for that, right? So I think that we've seen and sent billions of messages by this point, and most of the messages that get through are the simplest. So the carriers also filter, and so if you have these certain keywords in your messages, they're going to filter out those messages. Personalization works. If you're going to have a link in your text, don't use Bitly. Don't use like a free link shortener. The carriers block that stuff. And so these are just some of the tips and tricks of regular messaging. Media gets a better response. So if you're going to include an image, you can do PDFs, you can send videos, you can send audio memos, voice memos, which is actually a really cool strategy for like scaling personalization. So one of the things that we have in sales messages, you could clone your voice. So Beth, you could read a script. We can then convert your voice into text to speech. And so you could effectively write a message and then send a voice memo of like, hey, Jim, it's nice to know you. Hey, Mike, hey, this. So how do you scale personalization? Like those are some really cool features.
Love that. You've made a lot of changes since,
Oh, yeah.
you were that's exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you, what's something you believe about business growth that others might disagree with?
Um,
I'm getting you some really deep questions
yeah,
'cause
I think, hmm, product is most important. And so, like, I come from the marketing world, and as a marketer, you want to market something that's good and valuable, and so we have grown on the backs of creating a good product. It's not because of our marketing; it's because we built a good product that solves problems. And so, I think when it's flip flopped is typically where you see companies explode or implode, where they're focused on marketing, but then their product doesn't support that. And so while they could have great marketing, people come into the product and realize like, oh, it actually doesn't do what I need to do, and therefore churn. So you have a lot of companies that are great marketing companies, right? But they're not great product, and so it's a leaky
right.
bucket.
I would term that as not delivering on the brand promise.
Yeah,
You're out there marketing saying it's gonna be the best experience you ever had, and it's not. And so that word of mouth marketing that you're is what you're benefiting from, right? You're delivering this incredible experience so people tell other people and you grow even organically. But if you do it the opposite way, then you can also implode just as fast by people telling others, no, that was terrible. My experience
yeah,
with that was terrible.
yeah. Yeah, and so now it's, having marketing is now the easy part, where it's like, "Whoa, you've got a product that can really, um, solve so many different problems." And so, I think the challenge we had before with Call Loop, which I think a lot of business owners were probably in, is you know, there's an idea called product market fit. And so product market fit is, let's say you bring in 10 leads and they all have different needs, wants, desires, but your product only solves one. And you're like, man, we're driving a lot of leads, but we can only serve like one out of 10. But when you start building more product that solves more of those use cases, now you go from, one to two to five to eight to nine to hey, if you fit this profile, we can help you. And so for us, that's been like HubSpot. So it's like, hey, if you use HubSpot, you should be using sales message. Why? Every company that comes in, they all have the same similar issues. We can help solve that problem in all these different ways. Now it's like 80-20, where, hey, you come in, you want to solve this one thing. But when you get into the nitty gritty and you need to solve these sort of micro use cases, like we do that pretty well. So, I think the expansion of the offering gives you a wider win versus, hey, you're driving all these leads and you can really only help one of those 10. How do you expand out your offering to support more? And then you can open up your pipe and then you can really grow. So, for companies that come in to use sales message, hey, oh, yep, we can solve that problem and we can solve this problem and solve that problem. So, I think entrepreneurship business, owning a business is really just around solving problems. The key is like, hey, what's the biggest problem that you can solve? And is there a big audience that's willing to pay for it? And then over time, you start to go super deep and solve all these other problems that no one else is solving. And then sometimes you unlock an opportunity that no one else has solved and serves, and that becomes a growth lever. So, seeing those different opportunities and then exploiting that's a key to really growing the business, right?
Right. That's the one thing about, Seth Godin that I've always, admired is that he can think so visionary into the future of, like, he can
Mhm.
see things 5 and 10 years down the road. Um, a all of us can follow. But, when, like you say, you find that thing that nobody else is doing that you can solve, you become that paradigm, you become the front end of a movement
Yep.
towards being the leader, the business leader. Okay, so this is gonna be my last question. If you could send out one text message to every entrepreneur in the world, what would it say?
If I could send a text message to every entrepreneur in the world, what would I say? Probably just be a quote. um,
That's a
uh,
good answer.
Yeah, problems are secret calls to adventure. So Jordan Peterson is a great quote, and yeah, I think that encompasses like my entrepreneur careers. Problems are an adventure, and you can solve those problems. Some are worthy of like going down the path, and it's an adventure, or you just leave it as a problem, and that's fine too. So yeah, no, I think I obviously connect with a lot of entrepreneurs because. Um, I know what it takes to build a business and a company and the grit and the struggle and the challenge. And the funny thing is whether you're in a room of, small businesses, medium businesses, large businesses, all the problems are all the same. It really is. I was in a room a couple weeks ago, and this guy had a $350 million company, and his problems were just bigger problems. And so, still trying to figure out strategy and messaging and tactics and some of this stuff.
Bigger version of the same problem.
Yeah, it really is. And so, it's like, all right, well, what are the foundational problems that you need to figure out, and that can really build a substantial company. So, it's in many cases, sometimes it is a micro, like dialing in a process. Like I was talking to someone earlier, and he's like, "We really figured out this cold outbound strategy." Man, I would love to figure that out too. But that's the engine, and so now he's figured that out. He can move on to something else. So, yeah, that would be it. That would be it.
Awesome. That was a great answer. I know that was a tough question to end on.
Yeah.
Um, let me, where can people find out more about your company and what you do? Like, is there anything on your website that you want to direct them to?
Yeah. So check out salesmessage.com. They can find me on LinkedIn just at Chris Brisson. Every once in a while I'll post on there, but LinkedIn is where I'll spend most of my time. But yeah, sales message. They can go there, check it out. It's
And
been
it's
something.
sales MSG, right? So,
So yeah. So
MSG.com.
yeah. So salesmessage.com or sales MSG. If you see the brand, it's sales MSG, but salesmessage.com is where people can go. So
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much for your insights and sharing with us today. And um, I just appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you, Bethany, for having me. I appreciate it.